Hi, and welcome to episode 25 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Monday the 1st of February 2016, and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown across the internet. I think that this week's episode is going to be the third short one in a row. I've got just a few works in progress to show you with my knitting, and I'll also show a new project bag that I've added to the shop. I'll show that at the end if you're interested. But I haven't been getting up to too many other crafty things, but hopefully once I've got this cardigan off the needles in the next few weeks, then I'll have slightly longer episodes with more to chat about. But thank you for joining me. It's great to have your company, and we have a Ravelry group which you can find in the groups tab by searching for Give Me a Crown, and it'd be lovely if you came along and said hello. I'm also a little bit excited that being episode 25 means that next episode is going to be my 6-month anniversary. I have to see if I can come up with something fun for that. Maybe I need to wear a party hat or something, but we'll wait and see. So my first work in progress is my Geisler cardigan, which I've been showing for quite a few weeks now, and this is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. Bias will be similar, and I have one sleeve. So this is the body that was finished last week, and this week I've done a sleeve. If you watched last week's episode, you will know that I was sort of wondering whether or not to knit the sleeve with double pointed needles or with magic loop. So what I did was I put a lifeline in where I had the yarn holding onto my stitches, and I decided to use double pointed needles. Now I'm not sure if I've actually used double pointed needles to do a sleeve onto a seamless garment before. I don't think I have, because I've realised that it's actually really fiddly. I'm pretty sure that last time I used magic loop, and I knew straight away that it was going to be fiddly, but I just kept on going because I was curious to know how my gauge would react. But my gauge seems fine. There's a bit of a line there. I think that's just from where the lifeline was sitting. So once it's been soaked, I think that will fade away. So my gauge was going fine. I didn't actually measure it. I just sort of eyeballed it, and it looks close enough for me, and it fits. So I think that's the most important thing. It doesn't look like a big difference in gauge, possibly a little bit tighter, but I think that's okay. So I started off knitting with these 3.5mm double pointed needles. These are some, I think they're bamboo needles that I bought in Finland from I think they're Novita brand needles. And the reason why they were cumbersome was because as you start knitting from the armpit upwards, the needles keep poking into the body, and I had to keep swinging around the cardigan. But as I sort of progressed along, it got a bit easier, and then once I got somewhere close towards the wrist, I actually switched over to my shorter double pointed needles. So I use these. So those ones were 20cm or 8-inch, and these ones are 10cm or 4-inch DPNs. So these ones are Knit Pro DPNs. They're a little bit short for using on a sleeve, but I had 4 on the go and then 1 to knit with, and managed not to drop any stitches. And ideally, if I'd have had 15cm or 6-inch versions of these 3.5mm needles, then I could have used that for the entire sleeve, but I don't. So that's how I did that. As I was knitting along, I was very keen to get to the ribbing and I thankfully, as I was just about to start the ribbing, I counted my stitches and realised that I was 2 stitches off, and went back to the pattern and had a look at what I'd done and realised that I had miscalculated the number of decreases, but it was just, I'd done them all in the right order. I was just had to do one extra. And then I did the ribbing for the cuff, and last week I was mentioning how wonderful it was that the pattern had the number of rows for the body's hem listed, and it didn't have it for the cuffs, but that's okay. It was, I think, 4 inches worth, so it's enough that that you can't go too far wrong. And it is a fairly long sleeve. It sort of goes down to just past the wrist, so I think it can be worn rolled up or down, but I'll see once I've got both sleeves done how it feels to be worn. I have put it on, but I'm not going to do it right now because it is way too muggy in here and I'll start sweating, and that's not a good look. So I'll wait until I've got both sleeves on, and hopefully it'll be a cooler day when I next record. I also put out the request last week to find out if you had some suggestions for the buttons. So I've had a few different suggestions so far. So I've had suggestions for slate buttons, bright red and bright blue, and also for creamy mother of pearl. So if you have any suggestions on button colours, let me know. It's very hard to see how it looks, but it's a cardigan. It's a cream cardigan with a slate grey in the long collar. I'm still undecided about the button colour, so I'm very happy to hear any more suggestions, and just pop over to the Ravelry group into the episode thread and put your vote in there, and then I'll hopefully be getting some buttons in the next week or so. My other work in progress is my sock yarn blanket. So I actually have needles attached at the moment, so I'm about to get completely and utterly tangled. Let's see. Okay, I think I've got it now. I have a square in progress, but I have knit a few squares. So this dark green and brown is one of my hand dye experiments from last year, and I really want to start doing some more hand dyeing, but I just haven't had the time to break everything out and create a big mess and then clean it up. So, but hopefully soon. This second square is from Rosehip Island. So this is the flower bed colourway that I used in my Pop Fizzle beanie that I showed off last week. And then this square is from a mini that was sent to me in a swap by Celine from France, who is Cersei Bell's Bee on Ravelry. So that's I think it was a Regia sock yarn, and I like the muted pastel-y kind of rainbow colours in there. And I've also got one square on the go, which is what was getting tangled up before, and this one is this is a mini from Rosehip Island, and I'm not sure if I've actually shown a square in progress before, But I'm using 2.25mm needles, and in some of my earlier episodes I've spoken a bit about how I'm knitting this blanket. But you'll notice that I have an extremely long cable, and it's not ideal by any means. It definitely does not need to be that long. I did start using DPNs on, or double pointed needles on my blanket, but then I realised that it's just much easier to use a circular needle, but I didn't have a circular needle spare in the 2.25mm size apart from this ridiculously long one, so it actually gets tangled up a fair bit. But I should actually have a dig around in my needles and see if I've now got a spare one, because it would be nice to not have such a long one. And then I also have one little marker, stitch marker in there to indicate which one's the center of the stitches. So that's that. And that's it for my works in progress. There's not much else going on, but I think now that the Australian tennis is over, I can get back to watching some podcasts. I've been watching some, but just not as many as I would normally be watching during the week while I'm working. So I'll be watching some of those, and they'll probably give me that boost of enthusiasm to try some new projects. I need to look for some new patterns and go through some of my yarn stash. So one yarn that I have been meaning to cast on for a while, and I thought I'd show again, is it's in my new Snap project bag. So this is a sock-sized project bag which has got snaps on it, and it's got a matching handle. This was a prototype, so I've actually increased the length of the handle by a couple of inches for the ones that are in the shop. So at the moment, hand fits in there fine, but it's just a little bit fiddly to put it in and out, whereas with the ones in the shop it's easier. So it's got the snaps on it, so that if you don't like zippers, then you don't have to worry about zippers. So on the inside of this one, I've got this kind of rosy fabric as a lining. All my bags are fully lined, and I hand stitch the I do a bit of hand stitching at the end so that there are no exposed seams. And this particular one, because it was a prototype, I didn't put my own label in it. I'm not sure why I would do that. I really should start putting my labels into my own prototypes, because I do use them, so it would be good to have them. I know that a couple of them have them, but most of the ones that I've made for myself don't. But this is the yarn that was inside. So this is a Hedgehog Fibres sock yarn, and I have squished up the label, but I bought this last year from a yarn shop in Rylstone, in just a little bit inland. So Hedgehog Fibres, and this is in the Malice colourway. So this has got my favourite kind of colours in it, browns mainly, with little flecks of colour. So I don't think it comes up anywhere near as nicely on screen as what it is in person, but I really want to cast this on. I also still have a pair of socks on the go, so I need to work on those, but I haven't been doing enough travelling around lately, just sort of short bus trips, and if the bus trip's under about 15 minutes, I tend to just look at my phone rather than break out my knitting. But hopefully there'll be some longer bus trips or train trips coming up soon, and I can do some travel knitting on those socks. But hopefully those ones get cast on soon. And yeah, if you're interested in these bags, they've got a generous gusset, so they comfortably fit a ball of yarn, probably two, and your needles. And these ones are just interfaced, and then I've also got the ones with the zippers, which have got padding, so they're a softer type of bag. And that's it. I wish I had more to talk about, but it's just the way it goes sometimes, and I'll see what I can come up with for episode 26. But I hope you're well, and thank you very much for watching. And if you have any feedback or comments or questions, then please pop by the Ravelry group or send me a private message. And thanks, and I'll see you soon.